Miami Vice, The Florida Burn, Part 6. And a rainy day today. McDonald's coffee, I don't know. It's not the best. Just wanted to say that. Alright. Corky's complexion paled even in the sun and wind. Hey man, I got profit margins to consider, Burnett, and that's a freaking rip-off. And you know it. Free enterprise, dude, Crockett shot back with a marvelously timed shrug. Burnett was his cover name. Corky steamed in silence for a minute or two, then gave up. Crockett suspected the only thing that worried Corky was where to find the next party. The deal would still go down, but without the Colombian. He began to feel that he just wasted 4 days on Corky. A low-rent bust hadn't been what he'd had in mind for this afternoon, but now he and Eddie had to play it out. Corky signaled that his momentary peak was concluded by jumping back into his rapid-fire stream of consciousness, nattering. Sometimes I feel guilty, man. You know, like all that money we make. You should send some back there, man. To Bogota or Colombia. You should send some money there to sponsor a child. A nickel a day buys this child enough milk for a week. I always wondered how come they couldn't do that in this country. Man, I wish I could get a deal like that in my local supermarket, you know what I mean? But I sponsored 2 kids down there, man, Emilio and Maria. They send me letters, pictures of them, everything. They're almost like real children. There was a moment of oddly appropriate silence. Then Corky punched a button on the radio and the 450 SL was filled with raucous electric guitar abused by someone with a lot of flash and no skill. All right, Corky bellowed, turning it up full blast. Quiet, riot. Crockett and Eddie sank down in their seats. Corky's pickup point turned out to be a parked 1965 Chevy Impala stashed under an overpass near Little Havana. There was a cluster of warehouse buildings, mostly deserted. They bumped over some railroad tracks on the way to the car. It was a dirty, yellow convertible with a black roof featuring deep vertical slashes in the material. Somebody had sanded the car's door panel rust spots and sealed them using black spray primer, so the car looked as if it had flown through a heavy flak barrage. There was no one around. They climbed from the 450 SL, Corky and Eddie using the doors, Crockett vaulting over the rear panel. The tendon in his shoulder jumped. He resisted the urge to massage it. Gotta watch those old gridiron injuries, he thought. Corky was off and blabbering again to Eddie, the Malibu dealer. 92% lab tested, pure Peruvian flake, Edward, my man, root canal quality. You hear what I'm saying? None of that jumped on, baby, laxed rat poo they push on the coast. Crockett felt a pain in his rear end. Scooping up Corky by himself would be child's play. Eddie turned, delivering the first line of their divide and conquer tactic. Say, Burnett, I left my scale behind the seat. You mind? Nope. He turned back to the Mercedes while Corky fumbled with his key ring, thumbing up those needed to open the Chevy. This gave him an opportunity to pause by the trunk and show off his new watch to Eddie, build a little camaraderie with the customers, that sort of thing. He twisted his wrist and waved the solid gold Rolex under Eddie's nose. 12 grand, Edward, cash. I was going to spring 18 for the presidential, but it just screams dealer, if you know what I mean. Eddie nodded and grunted, eyeing the trunk of the Chevy. It's nice. Crockett Burnett retrieved the pharmaceutical scale from the back seat of the Mercedes. And leaning over, his sunglasses slithered from his coat pocket and clattered on the cement. "Crap," he muttered. Probably scratched the lenses. As he bent to pick the glasses up, he spotted something under the Chevy. He had to squint through his shades to make it out. A flat, black package like a birthday present, taped to the sloping curve of the typically enormous gas tank. His brain stalled for just 1 second while all the facts rushed together and made a picture. Still jiving, Corky shoved the key into the trunk slot and twisted. "No!" Crockett yelled, trying vainly to reach 20 yards and jerk Eddie back. The tail end of the Chevy blew apart in a billowing orange fireball that consumed Eddie, Corky, and $100,000 worth of cocaine. The heat blast knocked Crockett off his pins. When he opened his eyes, he saw the trunk lid of the Chevy flipping end over end 30 feet in the air. It was burning. One of the Chevy's tires rolled past the 450 SL, smoking. It looked like the vehicle had been hit by a jolt of Army-issue napalm and flattened. Neither the dope dealer nor Crockett's partner was in any way visible or evident. They had been erased by the explosion. Flames rolled into the sky. Crockett sat there, legs stupidly splayed, head reeling, the scale still in one hand. What was left of the Chevy plumed thick black smoke upward. It would guide the police so they could be too late. Zwitek and Zito arrived at the scene, even before the ambulances, for all the good they'd do. Ernest Zwitek and Tommy Ray Zito were the plainclothes vice team's hamburger and hot dog combo. Zwitek was a bearish dude, like a biker, keeping a muscular rein on a beer gut and hiding whatever smarts he possessed behind a dense brush of reddish-brown beard. Zito, by contrast, was a ectomorph, blade-thin and glassy-eyed, all bones and over-tight guitar string sinews. He usually had a toothpick or a cigarette dangling over his lips, and his fingernails were gnawed down to the quick. All the signs of a righteous adrenaline junkie. Zwitek loomed over his partner. Used to dodging and jiving, they were both distinctly uncomfortable because Eddie Rivera, one of their own, had bitten the big one. They tossed up their usual facade of indifference, watching the scurry of activity around them with detached concern. At last, Lou Rodriguez roared up in an unmarked official car, giving Zwitek and Zito something to do. No matter what Rodriguez did about his wardrobe, he always looked like an unmade bed. His pants were always a shade too short, his shirts a size too big, and his clothing seemed afflicted by a permanent slouch. He'd begun losing his hair at 35, and the coffee down at Division had permanently yellowed his teeth. Typically, the vice lieutenant snapped orders and listened to answers with care, with one ear, recording information elsewhere. He was a no-nonsense hump-buster of legendary status within the department. His green Dacron jacket hung upon him as if pulverized by a humidifier, and his tie was at half-mast. One end of his mouth mangled an unlit cigar stub. His eyes darted first to the bomb squad crew still going over the wreckage of the Chevy, and then to Zwitek and Zito. And we'll leave it there for now.